Another of the frequently asked questions on solution-focused training courses is the question, what do you think is hardest in learning the solution-focused approach? And it's an interesting question, really, because one of the things that many of us say about the solution-focused approach is that actually the approach in many ways is very simple, very straightforward. After all, in the approach, we have no theory of problem. All we have is a description of a way of talking that's associated with people changing. No theory of problem, no theory of what causes problems, no theory really in relation to what problems are. Just that description of a way of talking that's associated with change. So, in some ways, conceptually, the approach is very simple. However, there are two things that I think are quite hard. And one of those is based on my view that solution focus is in many ways counterintuitive. It doesn't do what we expect a therapy or a counselling model to do. And it goes against the grain of, as far as I can see, a great deal, if not all, of Western thinking, Western philosophical thinking, about change and how change happens. In 2003, Mo-Yi Lee and John Siebold and Adriana Yuken published a really interesting book, Solution-Focused Treatment of Domestic Violence Offenders, Accountability for Change. And in that book, they cite Steve DeShazer. And what they say is, and this is a quotation, a citation of Steve, too often people who want to learn solution-focused brief therapy fall into the trap of not being able to see that the difficulty is to stay on the surface when the temptation to look behind and beneath is at its strongest. People fall into the trap of not being able to see that the difficulty is to stay on the surface. I mean, look, as it happens, I'm a bit picky about words. I'm not entirely happy with the way that's framed. Steve says that we're staying on the surface. As soon as you say and refer to the surface, you're inevitably implying that there is a depth that you're choosing not to see. And that isn't a very helpful idea to me. My preference is to assume that all there is surface. That's it, if you like. And so the word surface doesn't, in that sense, work very well because it implies depth. So the way I would see it is, the way I would think about it is that too often people who want to learn solution-focused brief therapy fall into the trap of not being able to see that the difficulty is to stay in the client's narrative, to stay in their narrative and to work with their narrative. But of course, that is not typically what we do. Typically, in our world, the world of mental health, if you like, what we're doing is we really are looking behind and beneath. We're looking through people's words. We're trying to figure out what is going on here. We're formulating. And so all the time, the client's words, or the people that we work with, their words, form the evidence and the basis for us to develop our thinking about what's really going on here. What is really going on? What is it somehow that makes this person tick? What is it? Why are they doing the things they're doing? And of course, it's all of that in solution focus that we're not doing. We're not trying to figure out anything about the person. We're not formulating. We're not even trying to understand our clients. And that's a very difficult thing to say, and it's a very difficult thing to explain. Because pretty well every approach to psychotherapy, one way or another, is based on the idea of understanding people. Indeed, it sounds harsh to say that at some level, although of course I'm committed to people getting fantastic outcomes in the work we do with them, and of course I'm really committed to that, but you could say, again, if we're being careful with words, that I'm not interested in my clients. I'm not trying to figure them out. I'm not trying to understand them. What I'm trying to do, of course, is to listen to them. And listening and figuring out are rather different things. And developing a habit of staying in and working with people's narratives actually is quite difficult. It is counterintuitive. It goes against the grain of most of the thinking in our field. And so developing that habit of listening to people's words and working with people's words, rather than listening through people's words for meaning, that is hard. And in my view, I think that probably is the hardest thing. Actually resisting the urge to listen through. Just hearing the words and working with them. So when we're sitting with people in solution focus, what I think we're doing, we're asking a question. We listen to the person's answer, and as we process the person's answer, all I think we're doing is listening for an opportunity in their answer to connect my next solution focused question to. So as I'm sitting with people, I'm not listening for meaning. I'm listening for opportunities. Opportunities to construct the next question. And in order to do that involves, I think, a significant shift in our approach, in our thinking, in how we do things. And that shift is not necessarily easy to do. It takes discipline, it takes practice. However, when we manage to make that shift, to make that change, it is also incredibly rewarding.